it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach. Welcome to February. That's a little pink today. We're talking about resilient empowerment today, how to empower yourself in your life. And I have a wonderful true story all about that today with Paula Kramer. Thank you for being here, Paula. Please tell us more about you.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany. I have had a life that required resilience from the day I was born. My mother tried to kill me twice because I was her second daughter instead of her first son. She had been raised to believe that she could prove herself a worthy woman only as the mother of a son. So I had to learn resilience in childhood. And then when I was 12, I had a spinal injury that doctors misdiagnosed for 33 years. And the result is that my bones shifted out of place, my pelvis, my hips, my vertebrae. Things are getting better, but I still have out of place bones at times. My husband died when our daughter was 8 months old. So by age 28, I had 3 long-term life tragedies to cope with. And I've been coping with them my entire life.
Wow. I really think that's a great example of overcoming a lot of things and taking control. I hear my daughter playing the piano, so I'm going to pause for a second and get my microphone so that it'll cut that out just a second and talk to her. I knew that was going to happen.
Okay, I'm going to go get some water.
Thank you for sharing such a vulnerable part of your life so openly in a story. I really think that'll empower somebody else to know that whatever you face in life, you can overcome it.
You can figure out a way to overcome it, right? And I overcame it by listening to positive words I could trust. I used to just say listening to positive words and speaking positive words, but I've since realized that I have to say listening to positive words you can trust. Because some people will say positive words to you so they can manipulate you.
True.
And then speaking positive words other people can trust.
Yeah.
And by not asking them to just say something positive to them and then don't ask for anything. And then they'll know that they can trust you. And I got through all kinds of things that way. Plus, I have done what I call creating success in small spaces. And those successes added up to the victories of my life. I created those successes, small successes, by taking whatever positive control I could in any situation where there was a chance of taking positive control.
I love that you're making that so clear. It's a choice.
Yes.
Like even with all that you've been through, you realized you had a choice in every single one of those moments to choose the negative or the positive. They were both available.
And I continuously chose the positive. One of the reasons I could choose the positive is because I knew my father loved me. My mother wanted to keep me dead. She wanted me gone. She saw me as a threat. And she taught everyone in our family to ignore what I said and discount what I did. So my siblings, when we became adults, treated me like trespassers in their lives. And my father loved me. He told me what parents should not, in general, what parents should not tell children. He told me I was his favorite child. And that kept me sane growing up with the mother tried to kill me. Now, my mother tried to kill me twice when I was a baby. I have memories from when I was a baby. And I have found research that shows that babies just a few months old respond to traumatic memories. They get traumatic memories that young. They have responses to those traumatic memories. They can't put it into words. They don't have many words. When the first murder attempt, I don't remember the details, the circumstances. The second one, I do. I have clear memories. But my baby brain couldn't say, Mom tried to kill me. The memory is of my father. I was in a crib in a room. My father came into the room with a bottle. And that memory is so significant. It has been a standout memory in my life because it meant to me that I wasn't going to die.
Oh, wow.
Like baby brain couldn't say that. The memory kept coming to me in all kinds of situations. I didn't have the understanding to pay attention to when the memory came. If I had kept track of that, I would have come to understand its meaning sooner. But it kept coming. I didn't have to wonder, what is the first memory of my, no, it just kept coming right in front of my
Yeah.
face.
And trauma
And,
does that. Yeah.
right, right. And it kept coming until I could say what it meant to myself. And then it had been coming to me in grays. I only saw grays.
Hmm.
After I finally said to myself at age 42, Mom did try to kill me, the memory came back one more time in color. And I could
Oh.
hear sound and I could feel heat. This had happened in August, so it was hot. The window was open. I could hear sounds from the outside, and I heard a sound, a long, 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 loud sound, which is when my mother stopped and left the room. She
Hmm.
probably thought it was a police siren. We were living in Evanston, Illinois, near the university, the Northwestern University, where my father was teaching. There are hospitals in that area. It was probably a siren of an ambulance going to a hospital. So someone else's tragedy saved my life.
Wow. That's so you didn't know right away then what had happened. You
No,
just
I
had this
did. I
very
couldn't put it into words. I had various clues. I had pain in my legs that no doctor believed because they couldn't find any physical meaning for it,
Mhm.
any
Yeah.
physical reason for it. And I could not hold my little daughter on my lap because my legs hurt if she
Hmm.
sat on my lap. When I said to myself, Mom did try to kill me, the pain went away forever.
Oh,
She
wow.
pulled my legs down as she tried to smother me. I had violent dreams, and one of the dreams was my legs being held down and some pressure on my face.
Oh my goodness.
Other
Wow.
Another clue was a fascination with movies about family members who realized that another family member tried to kill them. I was trying to figure out how to cope with admitting
Mm.
to myself that my mother tried to kill me. I
Would
s-
you say that your mother's a narcissist or
she was a narcissist,
yeah,
yes, a
yeah.
narcissist. She had, and I understand why she was a narcissist. It doesn't make anything she did acceptable, but
Mm-mm.
her mother was paranoid schizophrenic.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, that
And
was it.
and she was the second daughter who was supposed to be a son. My
Oh,
grandparents' first child was a boy who died in infancy. Then
no.
they had my mother's older sister, my Aunt Terry, and then they had my mother, who is supposed to be a son. So she
Mhm.
got the treatment I got. I don't know if my grandmother tried to kill her, but my grandmother did have murderous tendencies because she threatened her husband, my grandfather, with a butcher knife. And
Mm.
he took it so seriously that he left the family.
Well, and that really shows generational patterns. Like, if we don't address mental health issues, then it's gonna affect the next generation. It's really
It
important
is.
to
It is.
address those things and get proper help for those things.
Yes. And I screamed at my daughter for all the years I didn't know how to cope with the memories. When I felt overwhelming stress, I
Mhm.
screamed at my daughter. She would not bring friends home out of fear that I would scream at her in front of them.
I
It
think
was
it's important to have some compassion for people that we don't understand their behavior,
right,
because often it's not something they mean to do. You
right,
left your daughter,
right. But I love
but
my daughter and I hated myself
and
for
there's a
screaming
co
at her.
but you were coping the best you knew
I
how with
was
the
coping the
circumstances.
best I knew how, right.
Yeah.
And this society does not want to believe that parents kill their children, especially mothers
Um,
killing their babies. So
we
I had
recently had a child go missing here in Idaho, and sadly, that was the case by the time they found the infant, and so it needs to be addressed.
it
Mental health
needs
needs
to
to
be
be
addressed.
addressed. The chance that that could happen needs to be addressed because it's I feel a responsibility, to safety for children. Like, we as adults, if we see something, we need to take action. I think sometimes people don't know what to do. Like, I'm sure your father didn't know exactly what
No,
to do. So,
well, she abused him emotionally as well, and he became a quiet alcoholic.
mm,
So
mm,
everybody in the family suffered at my mother's hands. I have been trying to get health professionals, child abuse professionals to pay attention for years.
mm.
Children, 45 children die every day from neglect, from
Wow.
neglect. One children dies every day from intentional action, parental intentional actions. I think I survived 2 murder attempts. I think 10 to 20 children survive attempted murder every day, but no one's paying attention to us. I became a compulsive overeater for 25 years, stuffing my feelings down. Other children grow up to become alcoholics or drug addicts. So when we see people drunk driving, we should make sure they stop drunk driving, but we should recognize that there's probably something in their past they need help dealing
Yes.
with, from something from their childhood.
Yes, absolutely. And I think people grossly underestimate how intelligent a baby is that comes into the world just because
Right,
they can't talk
right,
and they can't communicate. They are sponges. And if you understand that, there's a lot of power in that for good. Like for
right.
me, having an only child, one of my children doesn't have a father in his life. And so that hurt me a lot and broke my heart because it's like, how do I make up for that? Well, I really can't. But like in your situation, I have hope in knowing that if one child, any child, has one stable force in their life that is consistently there and shows them love, it will help them.
Mm-hmm,
I recently was talking to a psychology professional, and she was comparing some of her cases and sharing some information with me to empower me with things I'm working on. And we were talking about my life and how I had one stable coach and then I'd
mm-hmm,
have a stable teacher. It wasn't always one stable person, so that was erratic and that caused some issues for me to work through. But
mm-hmm,
at least I had those people, and I'm so grateful for them now as I look back and go, okay, home life was chaotic and there were things going on. There was some narcissism, there were some generational patterns that definitely need broken. And I never wanted to be home. And now I understand why. I should have trusted my gut. It took years to go, oh, that wasn't normal. Oh, it was right that I was feeling that way. But now I can look back and be thankful for that gymnastic coach that I had, that teacher that I had, that mom that kind of took me under her wing, and thank those people for showing me love and stability. They may not even realize the impact that they had on my life. And so I think it's important to know one person can really make a difference, whether that's for your child or for another child that's in your life. You don't have to be their mom to
No, you don't.
nurture them and to give them stability. Love is free to give.
It's free.
So we should.
And you can change a child's life that you don't, that's a stranger to you. I once changed a little girl's life with 4 words. And I
Mm.
now realize that my 4 words gave her the ability to take positive control in her own life. I was in a laundromat in Chicago in my early 20s, got my laundry started, sat down to read while the laundry waited. To the side, off to my side, was this little blonde girl sitting on a chair, hunched over, looking very sad. Years later, I finally figured out that an adult probably just left her there and went off to do other things because I never saw an adult approach her. While we were sitting there separately, a Philippine woman came in with 3 little girls, her 3 daughters, and the little Philippine children started playing all over the laundromat. They started tumbling around the laundromat. And I would talk to them as they tumbled by me. I would just say, I don't know what, I don't remember, but I would say something to them. The little blonde girl just sat there watching and looking really sad. Finally, when the little Philippine girls tumbled by again, I talked to them. And then I turned to her and I said, I like you too. She sat up straight, her eyes open wide. The sun came up in her smile, and she ran off to play with the little Philippine girls. I didn't tell her to play with them. I didn't tell the little Philippine girls to play with them. She just went off on her own. She took positive control in her own life. And once she did that, do you think she ever stopped?
No. And you can be that catalyst in that person. That's what I love about being a coach and
Mhm.
to voice these things and to have this podcast to support mothers and to support resilience is the idea that one person can have a huge impact.
New
Like
person,
you
right?
can have a huge ripple effect.
Right,
That child could go on to then continue that pattern, break generational patterns, to be kind to somebody else. And that's the
right,
kind of ripple effect we want in the world today, is to create positive
right,
change.
right,
Yeah. I would love to know your definition of resilience. We've talked about it a little bit, but like I
right.
love to catch people's definitions.
My definition is to keep doing what makes you who you are.
Mm,
If I were to, I don't have any contact with any family member on either side of my family. because the only way I could maintain contact would be to pretend to be someone I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, I can
And
relate
I
to that.
decided that wasn't worth it. And so I just choose to do whatever supports who I am.
Mhm.
So I go out and talk to strangers in the world. Like I talk to those little kids at the laundromat. And,
Yeah.
and I keep writing and I keep pointing out stereotypes. I was poor because of my out of place bones from my misdiagnosed childhood spinal injury. And I was a single parent. So I dealt with a lot of stereotypes about single parents. And we were on food stamps and medical assistance. I started writing letters to the newspaper about poverty issues so people would understand. And to give you an idea of what the stereotypes were, one of my friends was in a babysitting co-op. And one day when she went to a co-op meeting, one of the other women asked, does anyone here know Paula Kramer? Because of my letters in the paper. And my friend said, I know her. The woman asked, is she fat? And does she sit in front of the television set all day eating potato chips? That was a stereotype of single mothers who said they need food.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
I wrote those letters that was taking positive control to work against the stereotypes and to be who I was, because I'm a writer. And I got 2 unimagined successes from those letters. I wrote letters frequently for about 9 years. The first success was one day I'd written again about poverty issues, and this makes me cry. I'd written a letter about food stamps, and a woman called up and asked, are you the Paula Kramer who writes letters to the paper? I had no idea what to expect, but I said yes. And she said, is there anything I can do to help?
Mm.
And she and her church group gave us a $40 gift certificate to a grocery store. Her teenage daughter babysat my toddler daughter when I had an appointment. They had us over to their house for tea. Because of my childhood and because of all the stereotypes about single mothers, I had thought that I would not be able to go to college and succeed because no one would let me succeed.
Mm.
Because of that family, we had constant or frequent contact for about 14 months. Because of that family, I decided I was part of American society and I could go to college and succeed. And I did go to college, and now I'm an international voice.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm about to finish my degree. It's been challenging as a single
Yes,
mom.
yes,
Very challenging.
yes.
Um,
And
and
then
it,
wait, there's one more unimagined success I got from those letters. As I was a compulsive overeater for 25 years to bury my feelings. And I was writing in the 80s. I didn't say to myself, Mom did try to kill me until 1993. But as I wrote the letters, I felt less and less compulsion to overeat. And by 1989, I had mostly stopped overeating. The last instance was a small instance that happened in 1991. So before I said to myself, Mom did try to kill me, I was able to stop stuffing down those feelings because those letters satisfied my needs for approval and recognition. So by taking that little bit of positive control to write about stereotypes in the newspaper, I got 2 unimagined successes in my life.
I love that. And I have to share, there's like this need to voice when you've been through something. My little guy needs me again. So just speaking of being a single mom, that was a little mini
Yes,
interruption.
no, I was there.
We're authentic here, real life. So I love that you did a couple things. You recognized that you didn't have the support you needed. And
Mm,
so you stopped allowing that in your life so that you could thrive and that
right.
you could take your power back and take control and be who you are. I can relate to family who wants to keep me in a certain box that they're comfortable with. And I've even tried to expand in my family and find different people in the family I can relate to. And it's been few and far between because they're so used to the pattern that they're in the
Right,
family
Right.
And if I change it, changes everything. And people are too comfortable in the role that they're in and the way that they've decided the world works for them. And
Right.
so I've had to seek other community, and I've really found that mainly online and with other coaches and people that do personal development, and also those who've been through a lot of trauma and overcome it, which is
Mhm.
something I've had to do in my own life. And we had a murder in our family when I was a baby. My aunt was murdered by her convert fiance when I was 6 months old. We share a middle name. There was Betty Lorraine Galloway, then Susan Lorraine Galloway, and Tiffany Lorraine Galloway. So my middle name is special to me because I'm tied to her. I have the same
Oh,
birthmark as her. There's this weird, like, I feel her sometimes, like, beyond the veil, I guess,
oh,
as a way to put it. And there's a lot of Susans in my life who pop up and are supportive to me, actually, too. So it's just kind of this kind of cool thing that when you're more aware of your family heritage and different things, that you can
right,
see the moving pieces. But that trauma has affected my family
right,
for years.
right,
And
right.
it's not something that went away. And we even, as my grandparents died, the the gentleman's parents are like, well, now that she's gone, her parents are gone, or he should be able to get out on good behavior or something like that. So my family, like every 7 years or so, has to write and say why that he should still be in there. And I we were asked to write letters, and I'm it may be in my late 20s when I got asked to write a letter, and I really thought about it, and I thought about how the mental health issues that came from that, the unresolved trauma that came from that, the controlling nature, overprotectiveness of my parents that came from that. And I shared experiences of how his
Mhm,
that
mhm.
effect
Right,
has
right.
affected the whole generation. It didn't just affect my grandparents or parents.
No,
It
it didn't.
affected my dad, which has affected me, which if I don't break that pattern and resolve that trauma, it's going to affect my kids. It's
Right.
not over. It, the consequence of that kind of serious act is never
Mhm.
over for the
It's never
family.
over. It's never
And
over.
and so I think it's important to take a stand on these things that you feel
Mhm.
strongly about and to voice these things. Some people
Right.
are blessed not to have these extreme things in their
And
life,
some people are.
and others are. And it's important to expand our understanding of humanity and the amount of struggle that somebody else goes through. Two things: it doesn't mean they're broken,
Right.
and it doesn't change their value. And
No.
there's real empowerment in that. And that's what you did for that little girl, is whatever was going on with her, she wasn't participating probably because she didn't feel valued like the other
Mhm. Right.
kids. And it just took you giving her permission to be a kid and to be valued as a child for her to step right back into who she was meant to be. And that's the
Mhm.
kind of empowerment that I
Right.
want to talk about this month with this podcast. And I love your story because there's just so many things that you overcame. And it sounds like you did that work a lot on your own.
I did.
Um,
I have done
yeah.
it a lot on my own. I was in therapy for 5 years with 2 different therapists, and the first therapist, I now realize, with perspective, gaslighted me. The
Mm,
second therapist was better, and so I was able to say the most important things. I couldn't say the most important things I needed to say to my first therapist because she needed to fit me into her favorite
mhm.
theory. And
Yeah. Uh-huh.
everything else, no, it can't be because it doesn't fit my theory.
Yeah, it's really important to understand what you're dealing with. So, like, gain an evaluation done, so you know if it's chronic post-traumatic stress, or if there's bipolar, if there's a little bit of schizophrenia, if there's borderline personality disorder. There's a whole array that we know more about today.
Mhm.
But in order to get the right help, you have to know what you're dealing with. And I
Right.
think that's scary at first. And there's a lot of shame and guilt around, oh, I have a mental health issue. Oh, or somebody hears bipolar and they're like, "Oh my," or they hear schizophrenia and like, there are brilliant people in the world who have these
Right,
things
right,
and are successful. They
right.
can be dealt with, but you do have to be willing to acknowledge them and know that you still have power even within those parameters of what
Mhm.
you're gonna do about it.
Right. Well, think about Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, and he took whatever power he could inside that prison, and he was able to convince a guard to befriend him, who gave
Yeah.
him special treatment.
I
hidden.
also love the book Man's Search for Meaning and just how people overcame what was going on in the concentration camps. And
Mhm.
because there are some human powers and there are some things nobody can take away from you, no matter how horrible they are being to you.
Right.
And you still have a choice to keep your humanity under
Mhm.
all those circumstances. And I love stories like that. Martin Luther King and some of the great leaders of the past have done just that. We only know them for the impact that they had, but a lot of them had that impact because of what they overcame themselves
Mhm.
or the situations that they faced, and they chose to step up. They chose to be empowered and then empower other people with that experience.
Right. Right. I want to say something about my Aunt Terry, my mother's older sister. When I walked away from family, she sent me a Christmas card every year for the rest of her life because
Oh,
she knew her sister.
yeah,
She knew my mother.
yeah. Well, and I find it's hard in some very conservative kind of Christian circles for people to get that some people's family are not good for them.
Right.
Some
So
some
don't have
people's
that.
family are actually what actually trigger more issues, or
Mhm.
sometimes they set that person up because they know how to push their buttons and they know how to make them fit back into the role that they want them to fit into in the
Right.
family.
Right.
And the sad thing is it sometimes can be really well-intentioned at the heart of it, that
Mhm.
maybe that parent's really controlling because control to them equals safety, or their love language is one that's just not a healthy one for that person,
Right.
or they just haven't moved on to this is an adult child in my life. This is not a young child that I can need to manage and haven't transitioned into that adult relationship.
Right. Right.
So, but it's hard because it does leave a void. I will say that, like, I think it can leave a void, and I try to fill that with other people, and and I do it the best that I can, but I think there's always that little piece that you're like, "Oh, I wish I knew what it was like to have a healthy family relationship."
Well,
So
I've done that. I live in a village that has only 150 people in it now. We've been a
Oh, wow.
little bigger at times, but now it's 150. And I've established as many connections as I can in the village. And my favorite story about what this has brought me is my snow angel story. In April 2018, I live in central Wisconsin. There was a blizzard. April, a blizzard. Where I live on one side of the street, mostly by myself, and then across the road are four houses. So the plow leaves most of the snow on my side of the road because it's me. After the blizzard, I went out and there was a 5 foot long, 3 foot high pile of snow behind my car.
Oh, wow.
I started doing a little shoveling, but I still have out of place bones. So I only did a little. And I thought, it's April. It'll be in the 40s next week. I'll just wait for it to melt. So I went back inside. Four houses across the street weren't going to let that happen. The man at one end, I had never actually talked to yet. The family was fairly new. They had had a family tragedy, and I had sent a note. That was an entire contact with this family. He came by with a skid and cleared away that 5 foot long, 3 foot high pile. Then the neighbor on the other end came out and he shoveled the rest of the driveway up to my car. The neighbor over here came over and shoveled around my car. And then the other neighbor came over and shoveled from my car to my house. I hadn't asked any of them, and they hadn't talked to each other. They just paid attention and did what I needed because I had established connections with them.
I look forward to the day when we see a need and we just go meet it.
Right. Mhm.
Especially if you know you have the power to
Right.
meet that need, just meet it.
Right.
You see someone who's not smiling, smile at them. You see
Right.
someone who's lonely, meet their need. You see someone's like, my neighbors are older than me, so I try to shovel their snow once in a while for them. Just it's
Mhm.
something I can do that's
Right.
within my power, and
Right.
I'm not expecting anything in return, but, like, if you have the power to do something for somebody else, let's take the time to do it. That's the world I
Right.
wanna live in.
Right.
And so,
And
yeah.
there's all kinds of physical and emotional benefits from being kind. It helps your health, your physical health.
Yeah, and you must be a testament to that, because I as I'm listening to your story too, the body doesn't lie. All that
No.
trauma and those things were in your body, and you've been
Mhm.
resolving and healing them over all these years.
I
Can you
have.
talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, well, I early on, Well, the first misdiagnosis for my back was that I had scoliosis. I didn't nothing close to scoliosis, but that was the diagnosis. This was 1963. So, and he recommended I do exercises. That was the one good thing he said, do exercise. So I started doing exercises, and I have made a point of exercising every day. There have been periods in my life when it was difficult, but for decades now, I've lived in my house for 36 years, and probably for at least 40 years, I've been doing exercises every day, and I make a point of doing my exercises every day. And so I'm 72, but I'm not a typical 72-year-old because all the exercises I've been doing, I'm very limber, and I don't move like a 72-year-old. People never get close to my age. I have to tell
I
them.
know, I am shocked you're that age, honestly. I wouldn't
I'm
have thought that.
72.
So.
I'll be 73 in February. So this is my
Wow.
birthday month. 73 coming up. And I've gotten more successful in my 70s than I was when I was younger. And it's because of all this positive energy towards myself and towards others, taking positive control. Doing exercises every day is taking positive control, and it had wonderful benefits.
Yeah. So I love that you took control of your healing, not just your
Right.
mind, but your mind, body, and spirit. And you took charge of that path. Because when it comes down to it, we can only control two things, ourselves and this moment. And that's
Right.
it. And there's so much more power than that than people realize, but it all comes from in here. You don't need some outside validation. You don't need someone outside of you. That power is with you right now, all along. And it's really, I feel like, our job to help each other acknowledge that. Let's acknowledge that strength in each other of what your strength is, whether it's creativity or being a good listener or being a writer or being an artist or whatever it is that your strength is. I think, especially as a mother, I really strive to enrich that in each of my children. When I see something that's a talent or a gift that they have potential for, I really strive to enrich that. I also do that if I'm teaching students. I also do that if I see someone at church doing something outstanding or thank you for listening to me. And the more that I do that, it just brings this lightness to life. You can find the joy easier. You see the sunshine more. You notice when you're willing to be grateful and positive in life, you notice the little tender mercies throughout the day, or you notice the little things that count more.
Yes. I've told an adult man in public, good job. I forget what I told him was a good job. I forget what he did, but I said, good job. He smiled.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It catches people off guard today a little bit when someone's kind. And so be different, be kind.
Right. Be different.
Yeah.
Right.
Make that positive change in the world. We have the power to do it, even if it's one person at a time. There's the story of a person on the beach, and there's all these starfish that came up on the sand. And this person was throwing one back into the ocean at a time, just sitting there throwing it. And they're like, what are you doing? You're not going to save all of them. Well, it mattered to that one. And if we could think about that with every person that crosses our path, that we have the chance to make an impact and we can make a difference, then this world would be a much better place. And we're getting there. I think we're more aware. At least we can talk about these issues more of health and mental health issues and healing and trauma. I'm glad that there's more of that being out in the world. We have far too much going on with mental health issues in our youth and suicide and unfortunately murder and different things that we just need to voice and be aware of so we can do something about it. But if we could just start with being kind to anybody, I think a lot of those things wouldn't happen in the first place. If we saw someone's need and we met them, it wouldn't even go that far. It's when we neglect people, when we dehumanize them, because when they're online, we don't see the consequence of what we're doing or the gossip. You got to think, how does that affect the other person? How is the action that I'm doing affecting others? And it can be in a positive way if you pay attention. Then you can be that positive ripple effect that we talked about today. Any last words of wisdom that you'd like to share?
Sure. Well, going back to the positive, listen to positive words you can trust and speak positive words others can trust and say positive words to yourself. I don't say negative things to myself. I do say, oh, that was stupid if I've done something stupid. But I don't say, you're stupid. I say, that action was stupid. I'm not stupid. I so occasionally do stupid things, but I'm a smart person who occasionally does stupid things.
We're allowed to be human. Yeah.
So positive. Always focus on the positive.
Oh, I love this. Thank you so much. And your patience as I've been in and out with my little guy on this. If people want to work with you, they'd like to know more about your writing or what you're up to
Well,
or the causes.
I teach soft
Thank
skill
you.
power strategies. I have 2 online courses now where you can learn how to take positive control in situations or take positive control in relationships. And when you take positive control, people who take positive control position themselves for unimagined success. Like my unimagined successes in feeling I could go to college and succeed and ending my eating disorder. You never know what can happen, but when you take positive control, you make those kinds of things possible.
Yes. And I love to encourage women to leave toxic relationships and take their power back because you're meant to thrive.
Mhm.
And it's just a choice every day. And you can have that positive change. You can be that positive force in your life and in the next generation's life, especially as a mother. Thank you for being here today. And we
Thank
will
you.
see you all next time. All right. Take care.